During the summer, lots of people come from all around the globe to visit the world-famous island of Sodor, home of the Fat Controllers Railway. The picturesque landscape and rich history make it a must-see for tourists, not to mention the prominent use of steam make it a must-see for train enthusiasts. Nowhere, however, was busier than the Skarloey Railway. All the little engines were rushed off their wheels, delivering passengers all along the line. Everyone except Duncan. He was kept on quarry work. The only passengers Duncan had were the workmen who rode in the brake van. Every day he'd trundle up the slope, pick up slate from the quarry, then rock and roll his way back down. Poor Duncan found it to be very tedious, and he made sure to let everyone who'd bothered to listen to know of his dissatisfaction.
I don't understand. Why is it that all the other engines get to prance along with their fancy, shiny coaches, while I'm stuck in the quarry hauling filthy, dusty slate trucks?
He fumed one morning to Rusty.
It's simple, plain favoritism. A thing controller must think that the others are more presentable than me. Typical.
Rusty listened to Duncan's ongoing rant with a blank expression.
I tell ye, literally every other engine on this line pulls passengers except for me.
That isn't true, Rusty butted in. I don't pull passengers. I'm too busy mending the line.
That's different,
Duncan snapped back.
If you're so busy and working as hard as you claim, when are you going to fix that bit of line that goes up to the quarry? It's been months, and I almost keep coming off there.
Exactly my point. I'm trying to keep the lines that the passengers ride on nice and smooth. I haven't time to mend that part.
Well then, you better make time,
Duncan fumed.
Because if I end up derailing there, it takes ages to get me back on the track. And all because you say, you haven't time to fix it.
Duncan then blew steam crossly and huffed away. In the summer months, a party of scouts set up tents beside the river. They all bustled about arranging things, but they were never too busy to wave at the engine as they passed by. They've come for their annual camp, explained Duncan's driver. It's like a sort of holiday for them. The Thin Controller has said they can volunteer and work on the railway.
Sounds like a funny sort of holiday to me, said Duncan doubtfully.
Lots of people do it, continued Duncan's driver. The preservation lines on the mainland get most of the work done like that, you know. That area on the way up to the quarry that you were talking about earlier, they'll put that right for us.
And not a moment too soon, said Duncan. What I can't wrap my smokebox around is them just doing work for free. I mean, would you work with me for free?
Oh God, no, said his driver hastily. I'd pay them to specifically keep me away from you.
Well, glad we're mutual on something.
Duncan puffed to himself as he continued up the line. Each day the sun shone, and it became hotter and hotter. It was even too hot for the holiday makers to lie on the beach. Every train was full. The scouts were hot too. They rested thankfully as the trains passed, but their cheerful ways became wearier as the week went on. One particularly hot afternoon, Duncan was puffing down with a train of slate. He clanked down the bad pot of tracks, rocking and rolling dreadfully.
Oh, sakes! My wheel feels sore,
Duncan complained. He was almost done with the day's work, and was looking forward to a good rest after his last few runs. As he rounded the corner, he saw the scout leader standing beside the track waving to them. The driver put the hand on the brake.
Steady on, Duncan,
he warned.
It looks as if they want us to stop for something.
Duncan groaned crossly as the train came to a halt. The scout leader climbed onto the step of his cab.
Is anything wrong?
The driver asked anxiously.
Not yet,
replied the leader.
But I am afraid there might be, unless the boys have something to drink. It's so hot today. We've drunk all we had, and we need someone to fetch us some more. Can you pick up some pop or something on your next pass, please?
Pop? Your kids want pop?
Duncan said irritably.
No problem. said the driver. We'd be happy to. Wouldn't we, Duncan?
Duncan let out a sigh of defeat.
Fine, he said reluctantly, and they set off along the line once again.
As Duncan was puffing back along the line, the driver pulled into the station, bringing Duncan to a gentle halt at the platform. He stepped out of the cab and strolled over to the station shop.
Hello, my good man,
said the driver to the cashier as he strolled in.
May I please get a few cases of pop, please?
The cashier smiled at him.
Of course you can. How many cases do you need?
Oh, I'd say about 4 boxes should do it,
the driver responded.
All right then, that'll be £15.
The driver reached into his coat pocket for his wallet. After a few moments, his face dropped as he frantically patted himself down.
Oh dear, I seem to have forgotten my wallet. William, do you have any cash on you? I've forgotten my wallet.
The fireman looked over and shrugged.
Sorry, I usually don't take my wallet with me to work. I just leave it in my car.
I'm sorry, but if you have any money, I'm afraid I can't sell you anything.
The driver's head dropped in defeat as he walked back to the cab with a long face.
So much for that. Now we're going to be late. All because of some silly children and their silly soda pop,
grumbled Duncan as he departed the station. Duncan travelled up the line alongside the river, and the driver was still disappointed.
I hope the scouts won't be too upset,
he said as they rolled by their camp. Strangely enough, when they looked down, no one was there. The campsite was completely empty.
That's strange,
said the fireman.
They said they would be here next time we passed. Probably a good thing they aren't. Not like we have anything,
added the driver.
Maybe they got off their lazy buttons and got it themselves,
scoffed Duncan. They started rolling up the bad part of track on the way up to the quarry. Duncan rocked and rolled worse than ever. He felt the rails squeezing tight against his wheels' flanges. His wheels creaked and groaned as he kept rolling along. Suddenly, Duncan felt his front right wheel slip itself up from the track and bounced on top of the rail. The driver had to take Duncan to a complete stop before he derailed himself. Duncan and his crew let out a collective sigh of relief. Duncan's relief, however, soon turned to frustration.
I thought you said the scouts would fix this part of the line,
growled.
I haven't had those stupid boys do a damn thing since they got here.
Duncan's driver quickly tried to calm him down.
No! I'm being serious. Name one thing you've done so far that wasn't play in the river or force us to go get pop. Like, honestly.
The fireman groaned to himself.
We're in for a long trip,
he muttered as Duncan cautiously resumed toiling up the line, much slower than before. After the long trip up the slope, Duncan was still grumbling as they rolled into the quarry. The driver stepped down out of the cab. One of the workmen walked up to him. "What's the matter, Samuel? You're not looking so good." The driver explained the situation to him, and the workman smiled. "Hey, I've got a case of water in my car. You're welcome to that."
"Well, I suppose it's better than nothing,"
said the driver indifferently. He took the case of water and put it into Duncan's cab.
"I'd say it's for the best,"
said Duncan.
"They haven't done anything for us, so why should we?"
"Water is healthier, I suppose,"
said the driver, still standing a little down. A while later, the slate was finally loaded into Duncan's trucks, and it was time for him to leave. He started going back down the line. Everyone collectively braced when Duncan rolled to the bad part of track. But when Duncan rolled over it, there wasn't any rocking or rolling. Duncan, his driver, and fireman were all surprised as Duncan glided smoothly over the rails.
"The scouts must have repaired the rails while we were up at the quarry,"
exclaimed the driver. Duncan wasn't angry anymore, but he now felt very guilty when he rolled past the repaired tracks.
Duncan quickly had an idea as they approached the scouts' camp. The driver put a hand on Duncan's brake and tried slowing him down, but Duncan didn't slow down. He coasted right past the campsite. Duncan, said the driver. What are you doing? Duncan smirked.
Don't worry, I have a plan. We won't be needing that water anymore.
The driver was bewildered. But we haven't any money. We can't buy any pop. What could your plan possibly be?
Oh, you'll see,
Duncan replied ominously. Duncan puffed all the way up to the refreshment lady's shop. Duncan's crew was still very unsure of what he was planning.
Just let me do all the talking, he said confidently.
Duncan rolled right outside and gave 2 short blasts of his whistle. "Hello there, and what may I do for you?" she asked. His crew were dead silent and awaited his response. Duncan put on the biggest smile he could.
Hello there, madam. I am here to pick up the pop that I was requested to pick up by Mr. Percival. It is to be delivered to the local scout whom has set up camp on our fine railway. 4 boxes of pop should be adequate.
The refreshment lady stood there on the platform looking most confused. "Pop, the Thin Controller hasn't requested any pop from me."
Well, he has. Maybe you just haven't received the message yet,
said Duncan. The refreshment lady pondered for a moment. "I did forget to check my mail today." She turned her attention back to Duncan. "All right then. What kind of pop am I supposed to give you then?" Duncan stopped and hesitated for a moment.
Carbonated pop,"
he finally managed to say. The refreshment lady looked at him, confused for a moment, until the driver leaned out of the cab.
4 boxes of cola, please,
he said. Duncan sighed with relief as the refreshment lady nodded. "All right, I can do that for you. So, how will I be getting paid?"
"A check in the mail,"
responded the driver quickly.
"The Thin Controller will send you a check in the mail,"
the driver said, nodding. "All right," said the refreshment lady. "Sounds good. I'll just be a moment." She turned around and walked back to her shop. She came back out with the boxes and placed them into Duncan's cab, and with that, Duncan set off back to the campsite. The boys were all sitting in the shade under some trees trying to stay out of the warm sun, until they heard a whistle in the distance. They all looked up to see Duncan rolling back up the line, coming to a stop right by their campsite. The scouts all jumped up and excitedly went over to Duncan's cab, where his driver and fireman were handing out all the drinks. The scouts cheered them.
"Not us,"
the fireman said.
"It was Duncan's idea."
So they cheered again, thanked Duncan instead. He blushed.
"Oh, it's really nothing," he said modestly. "You're helping us, so it's only fair that we help you as well."
The scout leader smiled.
"Thank you very much for doing this. The boys have been working very hard. Hey, would you like to stick around for the campfire?"
he asked.
"Of course we would. That sounds like great fun,"
they said. Duncan and his crew stayed until it got dark. They had lit a campfire and were all huddled around it. The driver and fireman were having a wonderful time by the nice warm fire. Duncan, however, who was left cold and alone on the track, was much less enthusiastic.
Dear friends, some of you observant viewers may have noticed an engine in this story whom we've never seen before. Well, allow me to say, this won't be the last time we'll be seeing them. In fact, I sure do hope you'll come back again for the next story. Sincerely, the director.